Hi guys and welcome to my channel. My name is Tina and my aim is to improve your drawings just like others have done for me when I just started out. This week I'm doing something different. I know how expensive all of our art supplies can be, so I decided to create these pieces where I'm using as little material as possible. This week I'm drawing tiger eyes with just a set of 36 pencils. I chose the one by Faber Castell, which are my favorite colored pencils to use. But if you have a set from Caran d'Ache or Prismacolor, you can follow along just the same. The vast majority of the colors match within these sets. A little side note on the brands: if you are just starting out and you are unsure whether or not colored pencil is something for you, I recommend getting a small set of polychromos like this 36 set. You can buy these pencils open stock, so you can always build up your collection without investing much at the same time. And as you progress and fall in love with colored pencils, you can add more pencils to your supply. Also, I decided this was a great opportunity to show you the difference between using solvent or not. For those of you who don't know what it is, it basically says what it does. It dissolves the pigment on your paper, and in doing so, blending your colors together. The look is a little different, but I'm personally a big fan. Colored pencil is a slow medium with lots of layering to build up your color, and solvent really helps speed things up. Okay, now let's get back to what we are here for. I'll list the pencils I used in the description. So starting out, I already had an outline of the tiger eyes on my sheet, and I just used my black pencil to block in the dark areas already. Don't forget that for the fur parts you already want to follow the fur direction. Then onto the eyelids, I add different shades of blue. This color is really great to help your black look less flat. Then I go over the eyes with black again. The more layers you use, the more you fill up the tooth of the paper. Make sure you skip the parts where your highlights are. Colored pencil isn't a forgiving medium, and you can't layer white or light colors on top of dark ones. We need the help of the paper for this, so be really careful. Next, I fill my eyes with yellow. Notice now, here again, I leave some white from the paper blank. We want to start building the iris, so I layer some green and orange on there. Deciding where colors such as green go is really all about looking at your reference picture. The more you draw, the more you are going to see the subtle hints of color that are in your subject. We want the eye to have a more red tone, so we go ahead and put that on, with a little bit of purple in the corner of the left eye. The next layer of yellow colored pencil is all about layering those colors. The eye also has like a dark grain to it, so that is where the black pencil comes in. Just make sure to keep a light hand here. I draw in the pupil, and for the highlight in the eyes I'm adding blue there, which you soften up a bit by adding white. Then I'm adding the same colors I've used before to layer the colors some more. Looking at my reference, I see that the pupil needs some more definition, so I add that on. And while I still have my black in my hand, I'm building up the upper lid, which has a little bit of eyelashes over the eye. Next up, the fur of the tiger. This part of the tiger I'm not going to use solvent and just build up the colors. I'm using cream as my first color here, and remember, in colored pencil it's best to work from light to dark. Just fill in the shapes between the dark markings. For the white fur, I put in some light gray, really light, where the fur is a little bit darker, and for the other areas I go over them with my white pencil. You are not going to see this, but you need to fill up the tooth of the paper. Then I go over that with my gray I used before, and layering this on will help define the fur while at the same time still being light. Back to our orange fur, I'm using orange here to go over the yellow we already put there. Make sure to follow the fur direction. And we want a lighter and a darker shade, so for the part on the bottom, I first add some light strokes and then I glaze over there with the orange just to make it a little more orange without making it too dark. Glazing is basically just letting your pencil touch the paper without adding pressure, so you get a light tone of that color. Then when we do the fur above, we can just press a little harder to make it more dark and do 2 layers like this. On the right side, we are just glazing again with the red, then adding those fur strokes. By first adding color and then strokes with red, we achieve a beautiful tone in between our lightest and darkest area of orange. When adding the strokes, again follow the direction of the fur. This way we are creating the 3D shape of the nose. Also make sure to switch up the length and direction of your strokes. Next, I use the red to add a little bit of definition and also darken up some areas. I then go ahead and darken up those markings. Just use your black for this and don't color it in, but fill it up with strokes. For the markings on top of the head, don't press down so hard. The markings here are much lighter. I glazed back over it with the orange because we needed to make it more vibrant. One layer wasn't enough, but with a second layer you can immediately see the difference. Finish the markings on top. Then we use a mix of red, bright red, brown and our orange to build the fur up even more, using the brown and red for our dark values and the orange and bright red for highlighted parts. Going back to the eye again, we still needed to get that under eyelid. Basically we repeat the steps we did before here again. Some blue with black on top, but by already having the surrounding colors in, it's easier to evaluate how dark or light something needs to be. That's why I added some light blue to the white, it just needed that little bit more definition. For a darker shade I used some purple, don't overdo this though. Back to building up our fur. I used some magenta where it needed to be darker, then building up the fur in the middle. First go in with your brown pencil like we did before. Where I needed to create the shade from the dent where the nose starts forming, I used black. Again, only press down slightly. I glazed over there with some orange and red. I even used some black in the white. If you don't overdo this, this will help you form clumps of white hair where it's a bit darker. And there you have it, how you draw tiger's eyes without solvent, well at least the left eye. Now we've got that side out of the way, let me show you how I draw the right side using solvent. For the eye I can pick up immediately where I left off and just use the solvent to blend everything out. Make sure to preserve those light spots for your highlights. I then move on to the fur because solvent has one minor disadvantage, you need to let it dry, be it only 10 minutes. I start by applying my first layer of cream, same as on the other side, keep those white spaces clean for your white fur. I then go over it with a light orange and a darker orange. Where I want the color to be darker, I add the darker red, and where I want it to be darker but brighter, I put the bright red. Then it's time to bring out the solvent. Try to avoid the black and white areas for now, you don't want these colors to run into each other. Otherwise, blend from light to dark for a smooth transition, and what you have now is the equivalent of 6 layers on the other side. While this side dries up, fill up some of the black markings. Do the same as on the other side, fill these up by making strokes. You can burnish here, which means that you can use a lot of pressure to flatten the tooth of your paper. For the inside of the eye, we'll be using the same colors as on the other one, layering them on top of each other like we did before. But now we are going to blend this with the solvent. Add blue for the highlights in the eye, and by blending it there just by itself, you can make it a bit more transparent. I then put in my pupil. Now it's time to get back to the fur. I put in some strokes with a light yellow pencil and follow that up with my darker orange. Because of the different color in underlayer, you can see the different shades of orange there. And then just like we did before, I want to darken it up a bit. For this I'm using a dark brown. To make it more vibrant, glaze over there a few times. Looking at my reference, I was missing some darker red, so I added some strokes with magenta before I started on the next bit. I'm cutting this out because it's exactly the same as the area we just covered, so the next thing you see me do is blending those markings with the solvent. Finishing up the eye there, first I add some blue to the under eyelid, light blue as a highlight in the corner, and then using my black around there to define the shape of the highlight. Then making the entire underlid darker. Adding some more stray hairs that melt into the white hair. And now finally onto the white part on our right side. Same as on the left, we start by adding grey hairs which follow the direction of the fur. We also add in just a hint of blue to help define it more. And then for the darker white, you can add in those black hairs, just be careful not to press too hard here. I then finish this piece by going over it one last time, making it lighter or darker where I think it needs to be. And there you have it, your own tiger eyes made with just 10 pencils out of a 36 set. So what do you guys think of the finished result? Make sure to comment down below. If you haven't already and you like my content, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I usually upload a video each Friday, but hit that bell notification if you never want to miss out on any of my videos. Like I said at the start of this tutorial, I like how solvent lets you go faster, and I'm also a bigger fan of the look. On the left side where we didn't use the solvent, you can clearly see it has a more grainy look, while on the right side it's much more softer. I think I like that more because, let's face it, fur is supposed to be fluffy. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you thought this was helpful and if you'd like to see more like these. See you in next week's tutorial.